What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the third and final part of this series, the history and story behind my alcoholism. I hope it's been helpful for some people. Your engagement's been great. Your comments are amazing, and I really do appreciate everything y'all say and the stories that you give back to me. That's the whole point of this, is to hopefully help by relating to you. So, um, so let's get right to it. This third part is going to be about, uh, sort of life after rehab and sobriety. Especially, that first year or so, or when you first get out of rehab and you're left on your own. That's, I think, important to talk about because it's, you come out of rehab and your hand has been held and they're telling you what to do and when to do it, and you kind of leave there exposed a little bit. You're a little raw, physically, because if you've detoxed off of whatever it is that you're trying to kick, but also emotionally and mentally, you're raw. It's a brand new thing. Now you have to learn how to live without the alcohol, in my case. So the story I have for you is my story. This is not necessarily how to handle yourself. If you're watching this and you're just fresh out of rehab, do not use this as a tutorial on how you should, run your life or how you should move forward with your life after rehab, because my story might not work for others. But this is my story and how it just unfolded for me. And I'll try to keep it brief. By that I mean, I can't tell you about the last almost 8 years of my life. That'd be too long of a video. But yes, that's how long I have been sober. May 19th will be 8 years. And the reason why I wish I could is when you are sober for X amount of time, you always go backwards and you go retro on how it affected your life now, like presently. And man, when I look back on that day that I decided to go to rehab and where I am now, there's a journey there, a big time journey. And you just start connecting the dots and you realize, wow, this wouldn't exist if I hadn't made that decision on May 19th, 2014. Then if that didn't happen, then this next thing wouldn't have happened, which then led to this, which led to that. And in my mind, it gets easier to stay sober because, man, I've experienced too much growth and positivity and stress, learning how to cope differently. Put too much work into this to ever turn back. So at least that's my motivator. But what I would like to now move into is let's talk about, when I first left rehab and what that was like. So again, there's parts of this story that are mine that I would not suggest for decisions for you to make. But then there's also some information in here that I feel will be helpful, that I think can relate to anyone. But when I was in the final few weeks of rehab, by this time I'm in outpatient. I'd already been in twice, and I was inpatient, outpatient, inpatient, and then outpatient for the end. And as I was getting closer to when I knew this was going to be over and I knew that I needed to kind of move on with my life, I really had to understand and look at myself in the mirror and be like, what makes you happy? Like, what do you want to do? Like, now's the time. If you're going to make any life changes, let's just do this and do what's best for you. So at the time, I was working at the Pfizer Warehouse Distribution Center in Memphis, Tennessee, which on the positive gave me this amazing insurance that covered all of this. So that was huge. And it gave me that short-term disability. So I'm very grateful for that. But outside of that, I was absolutely miserable working there. It was a warehouse, breaking my back, working on uh, stacking cases on pallets. Really, it was just aisles and aisles and racks and racks and racks full of medication. And that was my job, and it was crushing my soul, me, because I was so used to traveling and being out and having that freedom, that I've always struggled with 9 to 5s. I've always struggled with office jobs, and working a warehouse is no different. So while I was working there for the couple years that I did, I was always pining at, man, I wish I could be out with my friends and on the road, because they're all working still, and I'm seeing them on Facebook doing these cool things, and it really just got to me, because I was like, is this it? Now is this going to be my life? Not what I anticipated, not what I moved to Nashville for, is to work at a warehouse in Memphis, Tennessee. No disrespect to anyone that works in a warehouse, but it put me in a cage, and I just can't be in one. So I was struggling through that. So I made the decision, well, I'm going to quit my job and go back on the road. So the reason why I say that you should not make some of these decisions I've made is because what that means is, not only am I killing my security blanket and getting rid of my day job, but for me to go on the road and get back into music and be a musician again and do what I love the most means that I'm putting myself in the belly of the beast. I'm surrounding myself by alcohol. so so there's not pro tip number one. Don't do that. But somehow I did it. I made that decision. It was that important to me to get back with my buddies and get back on the road. So simultaneously, I had this opportunity to get back out on the road with my buddies, Mackenzie's Mill, a band that I played with for several years, off and on. Some of my closest friends in that band, still to this day, and worked it out where I can start working with them again. But knowing that I'm going to need other jobs and everything, this is when I started driving for Uber and Lyft. And by this time, I had already started hosting trivia nights after work. When I'd get out of the warehouse, then I'd go host trivia nights at local restaurants. So I had that job still. So I quickly was just trying to fill my calendar and just hustle to get enough work to pay the bills. But the number one focus is being a musician again. And whatever it took to do that is what I did. Now, so what was hilarious is I made this decision now a couple weeks before going back to work. So when you go back to work from being on short-term disability, there's a lot of paperwork. You got to be like, there's a whole new intake process. So I sit down with my manager at the time, and I don't know, about an hour later, we're finally done all the paperwork and just working through everything to get me back in. He's like, all right, man, we're good. Welcome back to work. I was like, sorry, man. So there's one more thing now. Now that we're done this, I got to let you know, I'm quitting. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm putting in my 2-week notice today. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I just, through this process, realized I need to move on with my life and do something that's better for me. And he's like, cool, all good. So that's what I did. I gave my notice, and everyone's curious. Everyone meaning my coworkers now. All they know is that I got in an accident at work with a forklift. For reference, go please watch video number 1, is when I talk about what led me to rehab. And I won't get into detail here because I don't want to talk too long on this video, but I got in an accident at work. And as far as everyone else knows, I disappeared for 11 weeks. Gone. They don't know the story. They don't know what's up. I kept my manager up to speed, obviously, when I was in rehab. So then that trickled out. Warehouse drama, gossip. Oh my God, Derek's in rehab. So he must have been drunk at work, or he must have been screwed up at work. This is why he got in the accident, and the company must have sent him to rehab. So none of that is true. I wasn't screwed up at work. You all know my story as I've been telling this. And the company did not send me to rehab. I made that decision. But when I get back to work, everyone thinks, wow, Derek, you must have got in trouble. You're okay. The company must have sent you to rehab. So then all of a sudden now I got to add to that gossip the fact that I'm quitting. And they're like, what is going on here? So I tried to explain it to everyone and just gave them the honest reasons and everything. And some bought it, some still to this day probably think I got in trouble at work. So it is what it is. But it was exciting to just say goodbye to everyone and just roll on with my life. Um, now, like what I want to talk about is to talk to the person that's listening or watching this that has just quit, where I can kind of give you some, not pointers, but things to look out for, mistakes I made. In my opinion, or at least how I felt or how I see things, is when you quit drinking, it's like a rebirth. You're brand new. That's why I'm 44 years old, but the sober me is going to be 8 years old. And think of each year that you're sober as like aging in dog years a little bit. But from what everyone tells me, like we all know, like dog years is 7 years to 1 human year, something silly like that. I don't know if it's the exact ratio, but the point I'm getting at is when you quit drinking, you are an infant crying for attention. Again, this is my position. And you expect attention, you expect empathy and sympathy. You're cranky, you're needy, and you just expect all your close friends to conform and change their life for you. So they're not, man, why do my friends, we're all out to dinner and how dare they drink around me? Oh, they're all drinking beers around me. Do they not realize I'm struggling with this? How can they all drink around me? And I'd get upset about that. And I would feel hurt. Like I'd take it personally, and we'd get moody over it sometimes. And then I'd get over it. But it was constant little moments like that where I had to keep reminding myself, dude, they're not going to change their life for you. They're here for you. They're here to support you. If you want to talk to them about your struggles, they're there to listen to you. They're my best friends. But, it's also their right to have a beer at the dinner table if we're out at Applebee's or something. So I had to get used to that part. But it took a while. But as you stay sober longer and longer, you just mature like a child. You get a little older and you live through your experiences and you've learned new coping skills and you get stronger, you get older, more mature. And I look back on how I acted that first year and I laugh. I get it. I understand why I was acting in those ways. But I like looking back and realizing at least I learned from it and I just kept growing. So now I'm back on the road and just playing in bars. And this is definitely where some of those issues come up where, my band, everyone around me is getting drunk. Now it's like, oh God, I'm in a bar full of drunk people and all my friends are drunk. So now you experience what I like to call Gilligans Island, right? I'm on my own island. It's just me. And there's no one around me that I can relate to in the sense of 100% of everyone around me is drunk or buzzed or just drinking and just in that mood, in that mode. No one's in there not drinking. And then when it's your closest friends and your band are getting wasted around you, even just buzz when they cross that, they make that turn where now they're they're drunk. They're still having a good time. Luckily, none of my friends are mean drunks. Everyone's still easy to get along with to a point. Still can get annoying, but so now here I am, like, and this is several months after quitting drinking. I'm not even sober a full year yet, and I'm putting myself in these situations. So again, that's something that I would not suggest doing. But I fought through it because I knew I wanted to be doing what I wanted to do. One of the one of the ways that I kind of coped with being out with the guys at a show, after a show, everything's just chaos because it's uh it's just getting crazy because everyone's drinking. Is everyone knew that I was going to be the designated driver, so in a way that made it so they probably drank more, which made it more annoying for me maybe. But knowing that now I had that role, I had that responsibility, and I liked it. Now I know I'm getting everyone home safe. I know I'm going to be safe. And then now I have a job to do. I have a responsibility. So I never used that as a way to not drink. It's not like I ever had the urge to drink and said, no, 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 I can't drink because I have to drive tonight. But I liked having that control. And that's when things started kind of making sense to me is you can, don't let the drinking control you, control yourself and take control of situations. And I was just straight up to my guys, look, give me the keys. I'm driving tonight. Okay, cool, great. And then I became Papa Driver or something like that. And just over time, that got easier for me to deal with. And that was kind of just how I did my thing, when those first, the first few months I was back on the road with the guys. But what took me a minute to figure out was that next step. Like, okay, I am the sober guy in the group. I'm going to be driving later in the night. We've played our show. Now everyone just wants to hang out for a couple hours at the bar that we just played at before we go to our hotel room or go to wherever we're staying. So now you got a gap in time. Well, I used to feel awkward. I felt like I needed to hang out and try to talk to my friends, or I'm already socially awkward anyways. I have this anxiety, which is what used to make me want to drink. So that's where the true test was. I'm in a situation that's making me the most kind of anxious. And for years, my number one coping skill in that situation was drinking. So I decided, I'm like, I'm done fighting that. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hang out here, then don't hang out here. So then I was just like, all right, I'm going to ask for the keys if I didn't already have them. And we used to drive in a big Suburban and pull a trailer behind us, and we traveled the country with that. And then it just became normal. Hey guys, I'm going to be in the truck hanging out. All right, man, we'll talk to y'all later. And I would sometimes for hours just be sitting in the Suburban, Netflix on my phone, just chilling, turn the car on, turn the air on, listen to some music, and be okay with it. Not feel weird where it's like, oh man, I used to get down on myself. Why do you have to be so antisocial? Why can't you just mingle? Why can't you just fit in? And used to make me feel bad, and all the emotional stuff would then spiral out of control. By this time, I'm like, no, I'm good. Y'all have fun, because you know what? I'm tired of being around you drunk asses. Like, y'all do your thing, because I know when it comes time to drive everybody home, it's gonna be loud and annoying. Because I love my friends, but I don't care how great a person is when they get drunk. They could still be a great drunk. Some get mean. That's not cool. None of my friends were that way. But they each had their own drunk version. And typically it's just loud and everyone's having fun. But here I am. I just want to get to bed. I just want to get home. But the moral of that story is I realized it's okay to just get away from that. It's separate. It's okay if you're just by yourself in the Suburban. Don't feel bad about that. It's actually a good thing. You're just chilling, you're getting away from all the noise and chaos, and yeah, you're comfortable. And I'm certainly not in the mood to drink because I'm not in there. What's amazing to me is not once did I ever have the urge to drink. I would see my friends push back a nice ice cold beer during the day, or not party time. It would be at a dinner or whatever, and they'd drink a nice cold beer. Man, that looks pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of that. But never did I ever almost do it, which is just shocking to me. And I can only look back on my experience in rehab. Something clicked. When I went into the inpatient that second time, that's when things were like, I'm okay. I'm down to business now. So I'm not coming back here. I'm not doing any of this again. This is for real. And all that therapy you do inside definitely made me more self-aware, realize what those triggers were. I guess it made me somewhat more confident to a degree. It's the only thing that makes sense to me because I tried quitting drinking so many different times. Again, if you listen to the first video or watch the first video in this series, I talk about how DUI didn't stop me from drinking. 2 weeks after my probation, I was drinking and driving again. I mean, those things, like, I couldn't stop then, but I could stop now. And I'm in the belly of the beast out at these bars with my band drinking, or while they're drinking. So it was what it was. And I fought through it. And being around people when they're buzzed to, anyways, from buzz to smash, that whole, when they make that turn, and you can tell when someone is catching a buzz, and the person, you can tell that, okay, they're no longer going to be easy to talk to because they're not listening because they're drunk. Like, they're being nice still, they're being happy in party time, but there's no more sitting down and having a real conversation because their attention span is that of a gnat now because they're drunk. That was always difficult, and still to this day, I don't put myself in situations to be around that. And if I'm out performing, which I haven't in over a year, it's deal with it, and then when the room turns, I go hide or just hang out in the truck. It's all good. So I wouldn't suggest throwing yourself in the middle of the storm that's going to be your big triggers, but that's what I did, because what I do suggest is when you're trying to make this change and you're trying to quit drinking, you have to change your life around it too. And if you are miserable in a working situation, in a relationship, and that misery is part of your depression and part of your anxiety, which then triggers your addiction, you might want to sit back and really assess where your life is at. Because once you leave rehab and you're done with that therapy, you're on your own. It's 100% on you now. No one's going to hold your hand anymore. You have friends to talk to, but at the end of the day, you wake up and you're accountable for not drinking again or not doing that drug again. It's totally on you. And often you see people leave rehab and they're right back there 6 months later. So take the therapy that you get seriously. Use these skills. So when you get out and you start moving on with your life, it's okay to make some big decisions. Don't be terrified of making some big shifts in your life that will benefit you. And you're not going to know if it's going to benefit you. You're not going to know the future. It's still taking a chance. I was taking a chance by quitting my day job and going back out on the road and surrounding myself with alcohol. That was the choice I made for my life. Gamble, took a chance. But I did what I wanted to do. I don't advise anyone quitting jobs and everything. You need to pay your bills, but sit back and take a breath and look at your life and be like, I'm miserable here and I've always wanted to do this. And I think I have an avenue to really try this new thing over here that's I'm more passionate about. Well, if you feel like you can do it and still survive and pay bills and not totally, you know, totally, my battery's dying. So lucky you guys, I got to wrap this video up. But the point I'm trying to make is sit back and assess your life and try to detach yourself from parts of your life that are truly negative and move on from it because it's your life. It's not alcohol's life. It's not the drug, you know, being the puppet master for you anymore. If you're like me, being a little more codependent, you always feel like you need the validation from other people to feel worthy. No, not anymore. It's all on you. You're your own person now. Do what you want to do and start early because you start using your coping skills. You're going to be terrified of some decisions you're making because you're not used to making big decisions. Again, speaking for me, I'd see a big thing in front of me and a big decision to be made, and it would terrify me, and I'd run the other direction, and then I would cope with that by drinking to forget that. You're not going to have that anymore. So lean into whatever's spooky and scary to you. If a decision is ahead of you that is a little scary and uncertain, and you're terrified of the unknown and whether you can do it or not, have some self-confidence and lean into it. Because if you go in the other direction, where it's the path of least resistance, then you're not growing. You're not growing at all. The whole point of sobriety is to grow. And with each year, you're aging in like dog years in a way. I would say instead of 7 years, let's say it's 4 years. So I'm 8 years sober. So I'm like a really mature 32-year-old. That's how I kind of look at it. I'm 44, so I'm an immature 44-year-old, I guess. I got it together now, but it took quitting drinking and moving on with my life to finally get to where I'm at now. Would it have been better if I didn't wait until I was 35? Of course. But it happens when it's supposed to happen because you have to truly want it. And when you finally hit that crossroad and you're finally ready to make a change, then do it because that's when you're going to be at your strongest to really follow through with it. So, look, I do these videos off the cuff, and I hope I don't talk in circles too much, but I truly don't come in prepared with this. I don't have anything written down. I just hit the record button on my phone and talk. So I hope this helped. I hope this series helped. This was sort of my way of kind of really putting my life story out there, because alcohol and quitting the sobriety is a massive part of my life. Because when I look back when I look back at the Derek on May 18th, 2014, man, I don't recognize that person. May 19th, 2014 is when I decided that I needed to change my life. And that's what I did. And it all leads up to where now I have this kind of confidence to do a channel like this. So sky's the limit. Just give it a try and try your best, and don't beat yourself up too much. Just do what's best for you. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.